Hey, and welcome back. And in this lesson, we are going to look at one of the samplers in Reason. Now, a sampler is really cool because you can basically load any sound that you want to into a sampler and you can play that back in different ways. So you can go and maybe sample a sound from a movie or from a song or from anything, and then you can bring that straight into Reason. Now, I'm going to have a separate lesson on where you can find your samples and then also how you can import them or create a favorite folder here in Reason in the browser. But for now, we're just going to focus on the sampler. So I'm just going to drag this down slightly to make some space. And then with your browser open, we're going to go to Instruments, and then you're going to scroll all the way down, and you should see a NN19 digital sampler. All right, you might also see this NNXT advanced sampler, but for this lesson, we are just going to use the normal digital sampler. You can obviously play around with the advanced sampler. It's basically the same, but you can do a lot more with it. I'll maybe open it up at the end of this lesson just to show you how it looks like. But for now, we're just going to add this normal NN19 digital sampler. We're going to drag that into our rack, and then we are going to play with this. So first of all, you will see it's going to create a new channel or a new track in your sequencer. And now we can add some patches to this sampler. So it's automatically going to take you to the NN19 sampler patches, and that's under the Reason factory sound bank. So if you go to your factory sounds, you will see the NN19 sampler patches right there, and you can start dragging these in. So I can literally just go and I can drag in this big string, just drop it onto it, and I've got my little on-screen key, piano keys here, so I'm going to press one of these buttons to have a listen. So that's pretty nice. It's a nice little string. Let's have a listen to this mouth strings, organ. Very cool. Let's try some of these guitars. So let's try this acoustic. Very cool. Heavy guitar. What's this? So you can see you can do some really cool stuff here. So let's start with one of those big string ones again. And now you can see you can play with all these settings again. And what you can do is, like, this sample start is something I kind of use often. And this is where the sample will start. Like, if you can visualize the waveform in your mind, that will be the start of that waveform. So you can adjust it. Let's have a listen. So you can kind of hear it's cutting off the first part of that sample. So I'm just going to pull that back, and the same with pitch. So you can adjust the pitch right there, or some really other stuff. Cool stuff you can do here is the filters as well. So you can play around with that. And then you've got some cool LFO things that you can do. So really cool stuff you can do with these LFO settings. Oh, just another quick tip that I want to show you. If you change some of these parameters and you don't know where it was and you want to kind of reset that one knob, all you can do is hold in Command on your keyboard and then just click these buttons. And as you can see, they will just snap back to the original position. Same with the sliders as well. So if you kind of play around and you're like, okay, you want to reset this to default, hold in Command on the keyboard and then just click that slider, and it's going to go to its original value. And now what you can do is you can create let's create a section here in the sequencer. So I'm going to set this left and right to 1 bar. Make sure your resolution is set to 1 bar, and then I'm going to double click here. and then double click again to go into the piano roll. And this is basically the same as your other instruments. You can now go in here and you can draw some notes, or you can record them with your on-screen piano. So if you listen to this, so very, very similar to your other instruments. I can now take my pen tool and create some notes. Maybe let's move this one up slightly. Let's just move this one. Let's move this one to that position. Maybe this. Sorry, maybe there. Something like that. And let's change the length of these notes. So I'm going to select them all, and let's make this 16. Now I'm going to make this resolution 32, and then we're going to just make them all shorter, nice and short like that. Okay, and another thing that we can do is this on the sampler itself. I'm just going to bring this release down. So now I can hear those notes are really, really short because I brought this release down. So listen to if I play this back, and I'm going to play with this release slider. So that gives you a really nice control of how long that note should kind of sustain or release. So you can play with that. And yeah, there's so many other settings. You've got your filters, you've got your LFOs. You can also sync that LFO to your tempo, which is really nice. And you can change these filter settings and LFO settings here. Really, really cool. And you've got your normal pitch bend and those things as well. And if you want to load a single sample that you maybe downloaded from somewhere, really simple to do that. So what you're going to do is, if you have your samples somewhere on your computer, you can just click this plus button here in the browser, and you can give it a name, My Samples. And basically with this you can create folders. So I'm not really going to go into that one. I'm just going to delete that one. What I actually did with my samples folder here, I literally dragged the folder from my Finder or from your Explorer, just drag and drop it straight into this section here, and that's going to create this folder that you can access on your hard drive. So yeah, I've got some claps and cymbals and hi-hats and etc. So I'm going to load one of these cymbals. And if you can't see your WAV files or your samples right here, what I usually do is in the sampler, just click on this section here at the top where you want to kind of browse a sample, and then go back to this this folder, and then just expand, and then you will be able to see one of these. So let's choose maybe some of these crash cymbals, and you can listen to them here at the bottom if you click this little play button. And now I'm going to drag this one sample onto my sampler. And then, very important, you want to set your solo sample right here at the top. You'll see there's a small little button there that says solo sample. And if I click that or enable that, now all my notes will be that one sample. Have a listen. So you can obviously change the pitch depending on what note you are playing. Let's have a listen. So you kind of get the idea. So you can load any sample. You can go out there and search for any WAV file, or record something with your phone or whatever, and bring that WAV file into Reason and then play it through this sampler. You can also do something like reverse in here. Let me just see, there's actually a loop section here, so I can just increase this to forward looping. So now if I hold it in, You can hear that that's looping. I can change this to forward backwards. Let's have a listen. So you can hear it's playing the sample the normal way, and then once it gets to the end, it's going to play that sample in reverse. Yeah, so play around with some of these settings on the sampler. You can really do some amazing things. Just click on some of these buttons and see what they do. But yeah, play around and see what you can come up with. You don't really have to add anything for this specific song. I just wanted to show you guys and girls what you can do with a sampler in Reason. And before I go, or before I end this lesson, I quickly want to show you the advanced sampler if you want to jump in and play around with that one as well. So I'm going to drag in this NNXT advanced sampler. So let's just drag it in here, and off the bat it doesn't look too complicated, but if you expand this bottom section, this remote editor, click on this little arrow, and now you can see this one is a little bit bigger and more complex than the normal sampler. Now it kind of works the same way. You can also just add some patches from here. I'm just going to drag in a grand piano. Pretty cool. And yeah, you can do some similar things like your filters are here at the top, and that's your master volume. And then you have all these other settings, and then you can also play around with, as you can see, this patch actually contains multiple samples that it's loading in. So it's not just taking one piano sample and then playing it in different pitch levels. It's actually loading a specific sample, depends on the key that you press on your MIDI keyboard or using the piano roll. So yeah, you can do so much here. But yeah, go through this, play around with this, see which one you prefer. I usually prefer to use the normal basic digital sampler, but if you want to have a little bit more control and play around with these settings, then go ahead and use this advanced sampler. But for now, I'm going to delete both of them. So I'm going to delete this advanced sampler, just delete all in the group. And then the same with this one, just going to delete all in the group because we don't really going to use that in the song that we're doing. So currently we still have this loop. Cool, and I'm going to save that, and I will see you in the next lesson.